Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. You ready to jump into today's global news?
Always. February 2nd, 2025, and let's just say the news is pretty intense today.
It really is. We've got U.S. Treasury stuff heating up trade wars, and even the EU taking a stand on AI. So much to unpack.
Yeah, a lot to dig into. It's actually kind of amazing how all these seemingly separate things are connected.
Right.
Yeah.
It really shows how everything's so intertwined these days. Okay, so first up, let's talk about something that sounds a little dry. But trust me, this is a big deal. Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE. DOGE.
Right.
Well, they've been granted access to the U.S. Treasury's payment system.
Mm-hmm.
And this is not just any system. We're talking about the system that handles trillions with a T of dollars every year.
Trillions.
Yeah.
It's pretty much everything. Think Social Security, Medicare, government salaries, the whole 9 yards.
So giving DOGE this access is a pretty big deal. It's raising a lot of questions. Some people say it's all about efficiency.
Like Musk claims.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
But then you have others who are worried about potential political influence. I mean, is this really just about streamlining things, or could it lead to conflicts of interest?
It's definitely a valid concern. And then there's the whole thing with Musk's accusations about the Treasury.
Oh, yeah. He's been pretty vocal about that. Basically saying they just rubber stamp payments, even to potentially fraudulent or even terrorist groups.
Which are some pretty serious allegations, and he hasn't actually provided any solid evidence to back those claims up.
Right. It makes you wonder what's really going on there. Is he holding back information strategically, or are these accusations just baseless?
It definitely adds another layer of complexity to the whole situation. Regardless of whether his claims are true or not, though, this really highlights the need for transparency.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially when you're dealing with something as crucial as the U.S. Treasury.
For sure. Okay, so moving on from one heated situation to another, let's talk about what's happening between the U.S. and Canada. Things are getting pretty icy up north.
Yeah, a full-blown trade war is brewing. Trump just slapped some hefty tariffs on Canadian goods, and Trudeau is firing back.
It's a classic example of rising protectionism. We're
Right.
seeing a 25% tariff on all goods coming from Canada.
Wow, 25% on everything.
Yep, plus an extra 10% specifically on their energy sector. Think oil, natural gas, all that.
Okay, so those are some big numbers. But what does this actually mean for everyday people? Are we talking about like pricier maple syrup in cars?
Most likely, yeah. Tariffs like these pretty much always lead to higher prices for consumers on both sides of the border.
That makes sense.
Okay.
And Canada isn't just sitting back and taking it. They've already hit back with their own tariffs on a whole bunch of U.S. products.
Right, and they're doing it strategically, too. They're rolling out the tariffs in two phases. First, they hit $30 billion worth of U.S. goods immediately, and then 21 days later, another $125 billion worth will be affected.
So it's like a calculated escalation.
Exactly. It really makes you wonder if this is just a temporary bump in the road or if it's a sign of a bigger shift away from free trade towards more protectionist policies.
It's a big question with potentially huge implications for the global economy. Okay, so let's switch gears completely now and head over to the European Union. They're making some pretty big moves in the world of artificial intelligence.
Yeah, they're not just talking about regulating AI, they're actually banning certain types of it outright.
Banning it? Wow. Okay, so what kind of AI has them so worried?
Well, anything designed to manipulate people is a big no-no. Think subliminal techniques or exploiting vulnerabilities, basically anything that could be used to influence people's behavior without their consent.
So that's like election manipulation, propaganda, that sort of thing.
Exactly. They're also cracking down on social scoring systems where people are basically judged and ranked based on their behavior.
Whoa, that sounds straight out of a dystopian sci-fi movie. It's kind of creepy to think about that being used in real life.
Right. And they're not stopping there. Real-time facial recognition in public spaces is out too, except for very specific law enforcement situations.
So privacy and surveillance are big concerns, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. And there's one more big one. They're banning AI systems that try to read people's emotions.
Like in schools and workplaces.
Yep. They're saying that's off limits. Imagine a computer analyzing your feelings and judging your emotional state. It's pretty unsettling.
Definitely makes you think about the ethical implications of this kind of technology.
Right. And while these bans might seem extreme to some, the EU says they're not trying to kill innovation altogether. They want to be leaders in what they call trustworthy AI.
So it's about finding a balance between innovation and responsibility, I guess.
Exactly. The big question is, are they being too cautious, or are they setting a necessary precedent for the rest of the world?
It'll be interesting to see how this plays out and what kind of impact it has globally. So we've gone from the U.S. Treasury to trade wars to the future of AI in 10 minutes? It's amazing how connected all these seemingly separate events actually are.
It really is. It's like we're seeing a global domino effect. Actions in one place can trigger reactions all over the world.
Like the U.S. Treasury decision could impact global financial markets, the trade war could disrupt supply chains, and the EU's AI regulations could shape tech development everywhere.
Exactly. It's a complex and interconnected world out there, and it makes you wonder how we can even begin to make sense of it all in this age of information overload.
Yeah, it can feel overwhelming for sure. So how do we stay informed and navigate this constantly changing landscape?
Well, I think it starts with being more discerning about our sources of information. We need to be wary of misinformation and propaganda and actively seek out reliable evidence-based analysis.
Which is where deep dives like this come in handy, right?
Exactly. We do the hard work of sifting through the noise to bring you the key insights and a variety of perspectives. But it doesn't end there. Everyone needs to go beyond the headlines and dive deeper into the topics that resonate with them.
So it's about being an active participant in the information landscape, not just passively absorbing whatever comes our way.
Precisely. And remember, there's always more to learn. The world is in constant flux, and the more informed we are, the better equipped we'll be to navigate it all and make well-informed decisions.
That's a great point. Well said. So today we've talked about DOGE,
Yeah.
the U.S. Treasury trade wars, and the future of AI. It's been a whirlwind of info.
But hopefully some valuable insights and food for thought, too.
Absolutely.
Right.
And that's just the beginning. We've got even more to unpack in part 2 of this deep dive. So stay tuned, folks.
Yeah, you won't want to miss it.
And until then, keep exploring,
Yeah.
keep questioning, and keep those deep dives going.
It really is, and it highlights how crucial it is for all of us to really understand these global connections. You know, we can't just look at these things in isolation.
It's like a giant web, right, where each thread affects the others.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think if we zoom out and look at the big picture here, the most important takeaway is that we're living in a world that's just becoming more and more complex and interconnected. What happens on one side of the planet can have huge ripple effects on the other side.
And with so much information coming at us from all directions all the time, it's easy to feel overwhelmed.
Oh, absolutely. It can feel completely overwhelming, but we can't just tune out or get paralyzed by it all. We have to become more discerning about the information that we consume.
So how do we actually do that? How do we become more discerning with all this information flying around?
Well, I think it starts with being critical of the information we're taking in. You know, who's presenting it? What are their biases? Are they giving us the whole picture or just cherry-picking facts to push a certain agenda?
It's about looking beyond the surface and really analyzing the information we're getting, which is something we always try to do here on the Deep Dive.
Yeah.
You present a balanced view, consider different perspectives, highlight the nuances.
Exactly. And it's also important to look for evidence-based analysis. You know,
Yeah.
Don't just take opinions or claims at face value. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Do your own research and look for information from a variety of sources.
So it's about being an active participant, not just passively consuming whatever pops up on our screens.
Precisely. And remember, there's always more to learn. The world is constantly changing, so the more informed we are, the better equipped we'll be to navigate these complexities and make informed decisions about things that matter to us.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So we've talked about DOGE, the U.S. Treasury, the trade war between the U.S. and Canada, and the EU's decision to ban certain types of AI. Is there a common thread that ties all of these stories together?
You know, I think the common thread running through all of these is government intervention. We're seeing governments around the world stepping in and taking a more active role in shaping the economic and technological landscapes.
Interesting. So can you expand on that a little?
Yeah. So with DOGE and the U.S. Treasury, you see the government making a decision that could have a huge impact on the financial system. And then with the trade war, you've got governments using tariffs as a tool to protect their own industries and put pressure on other countries.
And with the AI regulations, like the EU is trying to get ahead of the curve and anticipate potential problems before they get out of control. They want to set some ground rules, establish some ethical guidelines.
Right. It raises some interesting questions about the role of government in this globalized world. You know, how much intervention is appropriate? Where do we draw the line between regulation and stifling innovation?
Those are tough questions, really complex with no easy answers. It'll be interesting to see how all of this unfolds in the coming years.
Absolutely. And it just underscores how important it is for all of us to stay informed and engaged in these discussions. You know, we need to be thinking critically about the role of government, about the implications of these new technologies, about the way our world is connected.
I couldn't agree more. So as we're trying to make sense of this increasingly complex world, What advice would you give to our listeners who want to stay informed?
I think the most important thing is to cultivate a healthy sense of skepticism. Be willing to question what you see and hear. Don't just passively accept information. Dig deeper. Consider different viewpoints, and be wary of anyone who claims to have all the answers.
It's about recognizing that there's always more to learn. The world is full of nuances, and this pursuit of knowledge is a lifelong journey.
You got it. And I think finding reliable sources of information, sources that are committed to accuracy and fairness and a balanced perspective, is so important these days.
Absolutely. That's something we strive for every day here on the Deep Dive. We're committed to providing in-depth analysis, diverse perspectives, and a healthy dose of critical thinking for our listeners.
That's great. And don't underestimate the power of conversation. Talk to people who have different viewpoints, share your own thoughts, and be open to learning from others.
Yeah, it's easy to get trapped in echo chambers where we only hear from people who agree with us. But to really understand the world and make informed decisions, we need to engage with a wide range of perspectives.
I couldn't agree more. It's through those conversations that we challenge our own biases and refine our understanding and become more informed and engaged citizens.
So well said. Now, before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to touch on something we discussed earlier. The EU's decision to ban certain types of AI. Obviously, they're concerned about the potential risks, but it's important to acknowledge the potential benefits of AI as well.
Oh, absolutely. AI has the potential to completely revolutionize so many aspects of our lives, from healthcare and education to transportation and energy. We're already seeing it being used to develop new medical treatments, to personalize learning experiences, to create more efficient and sustainable cities.
It's like any powerful tool, right? It can be used for good or bad. The key is to make sure we're developing and using it in a way that aligns with our values and benefits humanity as a whole.
Exactly. And that's where ethics comes in. We need to carefully consider the potential impact of AI on society and make sure we're developing it in a way that promotes fairness, transparency, and accountability.
Okay, so for our final thought today, instead of focusing on what we should be banning, let's flip the script and think about what we should be encouraging. What are some of the most promising applications of AI that could really make a positive impact on the world?
That's a great question. And there are so many possibilities to consider. One area where AI has huge potential is in healthcare. Imagine a world where AI can help us detect diseases earlier, create personalized treatment plans, and even assist with complex surgeries.
That would be incredible. It could totally change the face of healthcare as we know it.
Yeah.
What other areas do you see AI having a positive influence on?
Well, AI could also play a major role in tackling some of our biggest global challenges like climate change and poverty. Imagine AI-powered systems that can optimize energy consumption, reduce waste, and develop more sustainable solutions for food production and distribution.
And we're already seeing AI being used to create some really innovative educational tools that personalize learning and make education more accessible to people all over the world.
Exactly. The possibilities are truly endless, and that's what's so exciting about this technology. It has the potential to solve some of our most pressing problems and create a better future for everyone.
It really is inspiring to think about all the good that AI could do if we harness its power responsibly and ethically.
It is, and I think that's a powerful message for our listeners. As we move forward into this increasingly AI-powered world, let's focus on the positive potential of this technology and work together to make sure it's used to benefit all of humanity.
So well said. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground today, from Elon Musk and the U.S. Treasury to the U.S.-Canada trade war to the future of AI.
It's been a whirlwind of information, but hopefully our listeners are leaving with a deeper understanding of these complex issues and a renewed sense of curiosity about the world.
That's what we're all about here on the Deep Dive. We want to empower our listeners to think critically, explore different perspectives, and engage in meaningful conversations about the issues that matter.
We encourage all of you to continue exploring these topics, challenge your own assumptions, and never stop learning.
And until next time, keep diving deep.
Yeah, it really is amazing to think about how AI could help with so many different challenges. We hear a lot about the risks and the potential downsides, but it's good to focus on the positive side too.
I agree. And it's important to remember that AI itself isn't good or bad. It's just a tool. Like any tool, it all comes down to how we use it. We have a responsibility to make sure it's developed and used ethically, for the benefit of everyone.
Absolutely. So we've talked about AI in healthcare, climate change, education. What other areas could really benefit from AI in a positive way?
Well, one area that I find really interesting is the potential for AI to boost creativity and artistic expression.
Yeah.
We're already seeing AI being used to compose music, create visual art, even write poetry.
Wow, that's incredible. It makes you wonder if AI will eventually blur the lines between human creativity and machine creativity.
It's a fascinating question, and it really challenges us to rethink what it means to be creative and how we define art. And it raises questions about the role of human artists in a world where AI can create art that's basically indistinguishable from human-made art.
It's a conversation that's just getting started, and I think it's one we'll be having for a long time. But I'm excited to see how AI will continue to push the boundaries of creativity and change the way we think about art.
Yeah, me too. It's a reminder that we're living in a time of incredible technological advancement. The possibilities really are endless. But with all this talk about AI, it's important to remember that it's not just some abstract concept. It's already having an impact on our lives in so many ways.
You're right. AI is behind the algorithms that recommend things to us online. It helps us navigate with GPS. It's even being used to personalize our learning experiences through educational software.
It's everywhere, shaping our experiences even when we don't realize it.
Exactly. And as AI gets more advanced, its impact on our lives is only going to grow.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the most important thing you want our listeners to remember?
I think the key takeaway is that we shouldn't fear AI or dismiss it. It's a powerful tool that has the potential to shape our future in really big ways, both good and bad. It's up to us to guide its development and make sure it's used responsibly and ethically.
That's a really powerful message. It reminds us that we all have a part to play in shaping the future of AI.
Exactly. By staying informed, having thoughtful discussions, and demanding that AI is developed and used in a way that benefits everyone, we can help make sure this technology is a force for good in the world.
So well said. Well, we've covered a lot of ground today, from Elon Musk's DOGE and the U.S. Treasury to the U.S.-Canada trade war and the EU's stance on AI. It's been a really thought-provoking conversation.
It has, and hopefully our listeners have gained some valuable insights and a deeper understanding of these complex, interconnected issues.
And we hope you've been inspired to keep exploring these topics and engaging in conversations about how we can create a better future together.
Absolutely. We encourage you to stay curious, keep diving deep, and never stop learning.
And on that note, we'll wrap up this episode of The Deep Dive. Thanks for joining us.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and keep those deep dives going.